we go. All right. And welcome everybody to Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel. And let's see, we're going to be joined today by Dave and Peter, the Master Umpires of Red versus Blue. So you've got all three of us here to talk today about the Red versus Blue campaign. We're going to talk about the campaign in general. We're going to talk about yesterday's battle, and then we're going to talk about some specifics that should help everybody as they participate in this campaign. If you're not a participant in the campaign, you may still want to watch, but I do want to tell people that if you are a participant, you definitely want to watch this and tune in and listen to what we have to share with you. We're not going to give away too much game. We're not going to give you any sneak peeks or reveal any intel, so don't be nervous about that. If you are a player in the game, you should watch this podcast today. If you're not a player, go ahead and watch if you want. You might pick up or glean a few gems of wisdom. But this is a particularly tailored podcast because this Red versus Blue campaign is absolutely massive. I don't think the players know how big it is. We've got, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10 servers, and the servers are all independent of each other. And then within each server, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 or so players. And we are keeping track of absolutely all of this to give you guys a wonderful, carefully crafted experience. But that raises a question. What is the experience that we're going for? When Red versus Blue was first developed over a year ago now, it was really just a battle generator. The politics, the map, all of that stuff, it's really just a mechanic to generate battles for us to play on Saturdays, on our open Saturday slots. But it very quickly grew beyond that. It grew out of those diapers, if you will, and went on to bigger things, and it's become something more. Now, the question is, how much more? And I think that's a valid question, and players deserve an answer. And even as umpires, we kind of, there's a little bit of a spectrum there. There's a little bit of a disagreement. It's not an aggressive disagreement, but I think there may be a little bit of range of opinion on this. But Dave is our official lead umpire, and it's really up to him to call this shot. So I'm going to hand this over to Dave, and I'm going to let Dave talk about his perspective on whether we're a nation simulator or a Kriegsspiel simulator or what the heck this is, so that we clarify expectations for the players. I also, real quick, want to acknowledge Robert Bout, who is first to comment on our YouTube stream. There you go, Robert. You got your shout out. All right, Dave, go ahead. Hello, Dave.
Yeah. Hi. So yeah, for starters, I mean, I along with Peter, I mostly ran the 1805 campaign, and from there, as you say, it snowballed into the 1806, and whereas we want to kind of honor the roots of it being a Kriegspiel generator, with regards to the nation, uh, the nation building and the nation simulator stuff that we're kind of trying to portray. I mean, that can, yeah, doing that really generates casus bellis and rivalries between nations that you wouldn't necessarily have, and also from a role playing experience, it helps, and it helps build the world, and helps paint a picture. Um,
I,
yeah,
I,
that's pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's what I would say to start with.
yeah, for me, what I really like is you play the nation, you play the politics, you get emotionally invested in your character, and you get emotionally invested in your state, the nation that you're participating in. You become connected to the world, you become part of the world. And so for me, it's a big deal. It is a nation politics simulator, but with a purpose. We're not doing this just to role play politics. I am doing this because it creates what I call stakes. And those stakes become real, they become emotional, it hits you in the gut. And the idea is when you go to war and when you go to battle, that should not be a flippant decision. We're just here to push blocks. Look, if all you want to do is push blocks to the center of the map and roll dice, you can do that all day long on Open Saturday or any other day. You can do the play by post, whatever. You can do that, whatever. You can play pub battles or minis, whatever you want to do. Have at it. That's great. That's why we're here. That's why we have so many channels. But I wanted to craft an experience in my vision. This should be an experience where you're emotionally invested in the outcome so that you don't rush into battle without a good reason, without a purpose. And if you do go into battle, it should feel like you have butterflies in your stomach. You should have anxiety. If you lose the battle, you should feel awful for, a while afterwards. You should have a bitter taste in your mouth. If you win the battle, you might feel great or whatever, but you get these experiences that because you're emotionally invested in the world and in the outcome. And it's not like Open Saturday where it's like, oh, that was fun. Now what's for lunch? You know, um, and I think that takes Kriegsspiel to that really next level. And I think it also allows you to have a little bit more personal insight because that's one of the benefits I've got from Kriegsspiel is when I make certain decisions, like when I was playing as Emperor Vermilion, I made some decisions that I would not think I would normally make. But it revealed something to me about my own personal character. And I found that to be insightful and useful. And we're creating this experience for players. So think of it as a very deep Kriegspiel simulator. It's a very rich experience where, yes, ultimately we do want to use it as a battle generator to fight battles, but it's also something where people are invested and they have an emotional experience. And in the end, 5, 6, 10, 20 years from now, whatever, when you think back to your Kriegspiel career, you're not going to remember all those open Saturdays where you just pushed blocks and rolled dice, but you are going to remember this. And hopefully you get some value from it, not only entertainment value, but also some insight for the future. And that's the method to my madness here. I want to invite Peter if he wants to offer anything on this subject or share his perspective on the campaign. I know I'm kind of ambushing you with this. You probably weren't expecting it, Peter, but go ahead.
Um, yeah, no, nothing as deep as that for me. I am, as you said, we've got a varying degree of kind of understanding of how this is driving, and I'm much more on the pushing blocks and creating battles type of person without too much reason to do so. But so it's good that I'm not involved in diplomacy on this. So, but yeah, we're all coming together. I think as an umpire team. It's always a little bit of friction at the beginning until we work out the best way to move forward. So,
All right.
Yeah, it's a learning experience for everyone. Yeah, especially with regards to how big this all is, and you have to try and make different cogs fit different pieces so a narrative can flow the right way. And from observing some of the problems that we have had, sometimes they do originate from people on different time zones, and we are trying to manage that as best as we can. But I like I said though, it's a learning experience for us all. But we're and I'm sure the campaign as it progresses will evolve, and rules will be set up to make it easier for everyone involved.
Right. I agree. Uh, so people know, we, the umpires, have created a survey for you to take, and it's in the 1806 general channel. There's a link right here. It'll take you to the survey, and it's got a series of questions. Most are, you click whatever you think, and then we have somewhere you can kind of offer your thoughts. And getting that feedback from you, red versus blue players, is very important to us because it tells us where you want to go. We don't want to take you off the rails on an adventure that you absolutely kicking and screaming don't want to go on, because then you'll quit. We don't necessarily want that, but we are going to push your boundaries a little, because that's how you get that emotional investment and create that unforgettable experience. But yeah, we do also want to craft an experience that is entertaining for you, even if sometimes it's bitter. Look, folks, sometimes fine dining is like that, right? Sometimes you get chocolate, and chocolate can be bitter, but it's also pleasant, so you consume it. And it's the same thing, right? Coffee and beer, alcohol, are not necessarily the most favorable beverages, but we consume them because we enjoy them. And hopefully you think of the campaign similarly. Just so you know, we got all kinds of things going on. Look here, secret timeline. There's this whole world that's unfolding outside the view of all the players. That sometimes there's some interaction, but we're actually, just to keep it fair, we're keeping track of certain events on a secret timeline. I'm not going to show you actually, but there's all kinds of things going on. And this is just the primary channel here, where we as the umpires run everything. I can't show you that. Let's talk about the battle. There was a big battle yesterday, so this is the first time this campaign generated a battle. We spent the first 4 or 5 months of the year getting players kind of geared up, and we kind of had everybody on a leash. We said it's a really harsh winter, you really can't campaign. But then, bam, spring hit, and it's time to rock and roll. And well, right away we had two wars. We have a war in the north, which everyone knows about now, between Blaureich or Blaustein. Well, technically Blaureich. They've raised the banners. And Karvik, which is here. And we've had another conflict between Zarkina and Abyssinia. And this is the one we're going to focus on, because yesterday they fought a big battle, and we want the players to the greatest degree possible to control their own destiny by fighting their own battles on Saturdays. We did say we would abstract most of the battles. A lot of the little stuff we do abstract. Peter handles most of that, but ultimately we want the major battles to be decided by players. Now that is constrained by open Saturday availability, but when we have that availability, we do want you guys to be able to duke this out and decide this for yourselves. We don't want, as umpires, to decide the outcomes of your campaigns. We want you to make the critical decisions and have it on you, not us. In any case, Peter, I think you wanted to talk about the battle.
Yeah, so just essentially my thoughts on moving something from a campaign setting and a role play setting to then make it into an actual battle. So there was essentially, I had to use almost like a bathroom sink analogy, as in forces were moving towards each other, but then there was some kind of trepidations from factions as to whether they actually want to go through with it. Ultimately, they had to be sucked into the battle once they got close enough. So I had to use some cajoling to kind of bring them to it, because we had to have something happening essentially. So that was interesting. And then actually setting up the actual battle itself, on trying to work out how close the forces were to each other, any kind of forces that were arriving late to the battle, but then also making it into a battle where at least I try to make it so that the majority of people involved were actually going to get some kind of combat. Because I could have been super realistic, in which case someone would have been turning up 3 hours after the battle potentially. So I bent reality a little bit to make sure it was going to be as an enjoyable event for everyone, whilst trying to keep the advantages that some of the factions gained from the situation. I think I did okay with that. So yeah, I see you've got. We're still on the Reeswelt's map, but so I haven't got the main map
Right.
here.
Do you have it available? I put up a screen grab of the in-state, but if you have something better or more dynamic, we'll switch to that. Let's switch to that. Let me turn that off. And how do I view what you have?
All right. Okay. I think.
Little technical stuff here. You might be able to spawn in a map and just blow it up or something. I don't know. However you want to do it.
Possibly. Miss.
It won't hurt anything.
Possibly. I'm trying to load it up. I'm conscious that I'm using Spanish internet. No disrespect to any people that work in the Spanish internet sector, but it's a little bit slow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you work on that, and then I'll talk a little bit. One of the things, and I'm gonna put that. I need to put that screenshot back up so I can talk about it. Let's see here. One of the things I noticed in the battle is players had plans. Ooh, I don't know what happened there. Players had plans for the 3 o'clock turn. I guess 3 o'clock was hammer down time for Zarkina, and the game played until 2:30, which these things are sometimes want to do because we only have so many hours of real time in which people can participate. These games start in the morning on my time, about 8 a.m. Pacific time. But that means, for somebody who's on Greenwich time, that's like, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's early afternoon for them. So, once you play for 4 hours, now you're getting into the evening, you're getting into dinner time, you're getting into time that people spend with their families and other things. And we just can't play that long. 4 or 5 hours seems to be the sweet spot for how long we can play a game, but then at that point it kind of needs to end. So what that means is that players are limited in the number of turns that they get. Yesterday, players got 10 turns. And most Kriegsspiel games will go to about 12. I've seen about 18, 21, 22 turns for that same span of time. Bigger battles are going to have fewer turns. Small battles with small forces will have more turns. I think we had plenty of umpires, but again, we had a lot of pieces, as you can see here on the map. And as a consequence, we only got through 10 turns. So my advice to the players is this. When you go into a battle, and the battle is probably going to be large if we're going to spend a whole open Saturday doing it, then expect that there's probably only going to be a certain number of turns. We've talked as an umpire team, and I think we've decided we can guarantee that players will have 10 turns. We're going to guarantee you 10 turns, but I don't know that we can guarantee you more. We'll try to give you more. We did play to a natural conclusion, I feel. I think we played this battle long enough, and we ended it where it needed to end. But if you have a plan of battle, you probably want to make sure that the hammer goes down within that 10 turn time frame so that you get the effect of it. Otherwise, if you schedule an attack, well, don't attack until an hour before sunset. Well, we might not get to sunset because of practical considerations. So think about that. If that is the heart of your strategy, you will want to communicate that to the umpire team prior to us setting up the battle. So we can set that condition for you and you can spring that trap. You can do that little gambit or whatever you're trying to do. We do want to work with you, but all things being equal, there's only going to be so many turns that we can play through on an open Saturday. So we want you to be cognizant of that. All right, let's check in with Peter and see where we're
Yeah,
at.
I've the map is loading up on my screen. Hopefully, it's available to you.
We might have to join your server. Is that what we need to do?
Yeah.
All right, let's.
I think so.
All right, let's exit this and just give me your server, and we'll join you in, and we will see. There it is, and password is going to be.
Like yes.
Okay, there we go.
We're not giving any secrets away saying that password.
Yep. All right. So in a moment, here we are. We're going to see the. Here's the battle map, and it looks like this is the original state. And Peter's going to show us the battle. Well, I already chose a color, but okay.
There we go. I'm just putting these guys where they were supposed to be.
Looks like Spanish internet strikes again, but it'll load momentarily. It should load. In fact, I think I just saw something pop up, so we'll see. If not out, I'll go out and come back in. Sorry, folks, this stuff gets a little technical. Doesn't even say I'm in.
Oh, I'm running really slow. I do apologise. Right, it's completed, so might. Oh.
Alright, we'll give it another go. It gets hung up sometimes. We've talked about switching platforms. There's another platform out there, and I think there's a team of people in the community that are experimenting with it. And we may start using another platform, and it may actually be easier and more accommodating. I have the software, I think, but I have not really messed with it. But it's basically a tabletop simulator clone. Okay.
If you want, Peter, you can probably transfer hosts to either me or Marshall, and then it might load a bit better.
Yeah, sure. Here we go.
I don't even see.
Marshall, I'm giving you responsibility.
Oh boy. Okay, let's see how that works. All right. Thank you, everyone, for hanging tight while we have technical difficulties here displaying the screen. You can actually already see some basics, though, and you folks did get a view of the map a few minutes ago. You see up here that we have Zarkina forces coming in, and here it is. It's loading in finally. And the map does need to load. It's the wrong map, but we'll do that. There we are. Hey, now we have it. Okay, so let me make sure that everyone is promoted. Well, it says I'm the host, but Baker, you still have... Oh, you disconnected.
Okay.
Oh my. Well,
apologies. It's my end. It's the internet. It's just unfortunately.
Okay. Unfortunately I don't have the module, but what I can do is I can create a room, and if that map is in the module, I should be able to pull up the map. It's map state 14. There it is. It doesn't have the color on it, but if you go ahead and join, you can draw on the map. And,
yeah, sure.
All right, and so we'll give people some... Hang on here, let's delete. Let's clean this up just a little. Wow. That was just the most obnoxious thing. It's in the way. I am pretty proud of that map I created that I just deleted. It's an actual Kriegsspiel map. Let's see here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a few things on the map to show people, to illustrate. We have a really cool Abyssinian position that is defending this high ground in this village in a kind of a fishhook shape pattern, which is amusing because, you know, I'm thinking Gettysburg. But they did locate a very nice, high, defensible ground in the center of the map. They also have extensive reinforcements coming in from the south, but these are militia, so the quality of the reinforcements coming in from the south is not particularly high. but they are coming in and they are in great numbers. Meanwhile, Zarkina is coming in from this direction here, and they have a plan to go in here, and then around this way. And I'm drawing the arrows very roughly. They do in fact attack across the front. And then Zarkina has, which is a really cool move on their part, and it ends up being decisive in my opinion. They have a cavalry force here, which is basically, actually I think they start up here. But their purpose is to kind of slow down and hold. Let's make that look a little neater. The Zarkinan forces, which are coming in along that road. So they actually have, I think, a brigade and one brigade of cavalry and one brigade of infantry. Actually, it's a division. Cavalry and infantry coming in on this road. And up here, the player delayed their advance and was actually able to smash into this column here as it moved in. Actually, that column was coming south here. They were able to smash into that column and disrupt it, so that this portion of the enemy attack, let's pick a different color just to make it distinctive. This portion of the enemy attack here basically was non-existent. It didn't happen. So, and it's all because of one cavalry division holding it up. It's pretty cool. Okay, I think we're all here.
I'm in now, yeah.
Everyone's promoted and can mark on the map. So, Peter, go ahead. But this was huge. This was a big deal right there.
Yes, this was an interesting one because we talk about like symmetrical battles and asymmetrical battles, and to be honest, I tend to run symmetrical battles, but this one was definitely not symmetrical. So we had these very professional Sarkinian forces coming up against a more militia or shepherd-based force of Abyssinia. I think we were perhaps going to call it the Shepherd's War here as well, weren't we? So yeah, there's some interesting differences in the armies. And like I said, this is the town. This was the focal point here that the Abyssinian forces were defending, and they managed to set up a large amount of artillery on this northwestern flank, basically opposing the main route into the town. And then they had what professional forces they did have as the front force, and then they had their militia and all that kind of thing in behind, in the hope that perhaps they wouldn't get used. And then they had another force, as you've indicated, moving up from the southeast there, which was a combination of the Sultan's highly professional elite forces, and then again more militia that's been grabbed up King Harold like en route to the battle. And again, yeah, it's the Sarkinian forces have kind of done this whole attacking on multiple fronts here, which I guess in history has worked out quite well. Did work out quite well today, but that's mainly down to, like you said, the Abyssinian cavalry that was in the north there that just kind of trickled that whole area up for a little while, and that was a big factor. So
I'm looking at the comments on the YouTube, and I can't read through them all like I normally do. We're already at our time limit, but we're just going to keep going because there's plenty of great stuff to talk about. But one of the comments that I think I would like to address is this one. It says here from Achilles: having an enemy force in your first screenshot, if they are in that shot, they should have been seen and acknowledged for the planning stage. And then Sean says, well, yes, it should be. I didn't intend for the cavalry to be there. But, what we plan and what we want are unfortunately often different things. I will say that the cavalry was not in that proximity at the initial start of battle, but because we ran the time essentially, they were in the first screenshot that you received, Achilles. Um, but yes, I also agree with what Achilles says that if you start in contact with the enemy, you should know about that prior to the start of the game so that you can think about that and work on that. But however, in this case, because we kind of fast forwarded things to contact, you got it in your initial report, but no, you would not have seen them at the exact start of the battle. So I think that worked out fairly. It is interesting to hear Abyssinian commander say that's kind of not really what we intended to start with, which I find very interesting. They were, I think, allowed to confirm their setup. I know their setup changed. They had cavalry from the Umpire perspective. I know they had another cavalry force here on the left. They had it around here somewhere, and then that moved.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm sorry, Marshall.
Mhm.
Yeah, I because there was time constraints, as in I was setting this up for the Friday evening before
Mhm.
the Saturday battle. I was given some kind of indication of what they wanted to do, and I had to do something. So I put the forces out, and then there was a change of that. So that's why there was a cavalry there from the module, the picture I sent you. But then I took on board what the commander, the Abyssinian commander, said, and shifted it all across to the other side
Mhm.
of the map. The other thing was that as much as the Abyssinian commander had asked for things, the cavalry to be on the flank, he obviously wasn't on the flank himself. So I made a gaming presumption of where that cavalry would be, so that the game there would be like a one or two turns of movement before there was contact in that area. So it was a game mechanic or a game decision that I moved that cavalry
Mhm.
that much closer to them. Um,
Mhm.
so that's I think that's what I said before as regards to taking a campaign battle and making it as close to what may have happened, but also making it also enjoyable
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
well. So that was why that happened
Yeah.
there.
Well, that cavalry force just happened to punch above its weight class, which is not something we typically see. And remarkably, Achilles is a very experienced Cav guy. He plays Cav very well, and I think he made all the right moves and decisions. I think there was something of a failure of command on the Zarkinas side, and I'll talk about that from a Kriegsspiel perspective momentarily. Um, what there are three basic decisions that a commander at the high level has to make. First is where are you going to get, how are you going to get to battle, and where are you going to commit? So you're going to commit your forces here. You've decided, you've chosen the battlefield, or the battlefield has chosen you, whatever. And you're going to commit to battle. That's your first big decision. And that decision is actually made prior to when we gather around the table. The second decision is where do you put your reserve? And that's the big decision that a commander makes mid battle, where they're like, okay, this is where we're going to put the reserve because we're defending and we need to defend. Something that I think Abyssinia kind of failed on, by the way, was use of their reserves. Um, but the crucial element was the third one here, which is when do you order a change of mission? And the failed attack here in the north should have triggered a change of mission elsewhere, and it did not. And that is probably because the overall commander did not know what was happening in the north. I don't know if there was a breakdown in communication, or if there was a lack of clarity in communication, or if there was a lack of care and concern. I don't know what the problem was. It could be that the commander thought that the plan was going according to plan, and did not realize that, hey, no, this is a mess up here. But again, at some point, the commander should have said, we're going to issue a change of mission. And the change of mission would not be up here. It would actually be down here. These units are going to hold. We're going to regroup and attack on a more narrow front or something, because this broad attack that we had planned, that depends on these multiple elements hitting almost simultaneously, it has failed. It's not going to happen. So now I either commit to a plan that's kind of going off half cocked or half baked, or I change the mission. And, well, they went in halfway with half a plan working, and they nearly pulled it off. They nearly pulled it off. Abyssinia almost obliged by not committing reserves in a timely fashion. However, they did manage to stabilize the line. So that's kind of my professional take on this, that there were a couple failures of command on both sides. Now, before you think I'm picking on you or beating up on you, don't, because this happens to everybody. You should see me in command. Well, I'll get all three wrong 100% of the time. So don't feel bad, but that is the assessment here from my perspective.
Yeah, if we've still got time, I can move these kind of
Go ahead.
Abyssinian forces here just to show what they did here as well. So there was actually two columns of Abyssinian forces moving here. The one on the right was predominantly militia, and the one on the left was the Sultan's guard. I think that was a big factor in this conclusion here. So they moved up here, and then basically came in here and mopped up an already engaged Sarkinian force on the west of the town, and then the militia kind of came up here before this
Contact.
Northern had got this far. They were still up and around here with the Abyssinian cavalry kind of fending them off, and I think it showed in this particular situation why militia doesn't do very well against regular forces, because they melted away quite quickly. Maybe it took about half an hour for them to be dispatched by this Sarkinian force here, and that's essentially where we held it, wasn't it? So
let me ask you this: if we had given the players 3 or 4 more turns, past 3 o'clock into maybe like 4 o'clock or so, what do you think would have happened, Peter?
Yeah, so I think the Abyssinian cavalry in the north would have still done its job, and perhaps they would have slowed down these Sarkinian forces still within those 3 turns. It would have still been slow progress for them to actually get there. I think this force here, I'm using red for both sides. I think they already kind of shoved off this militia force, and they probably would have then started to make their engagement here, as possibly these guys would have done as well. I think these guys, the Abyssinians, were in a good position here to defend them. I think they had their artillery cleared again now that they'd battered away the western Sarkinian forces. So this artillery would have then reorientated to the north and been quite effective there. And I think also the royal, the Sultan's forces would have probably come in and supported in the town as well, whilst their cataphracts and the other professional troops they had, the quick moving troops would have probably secured that flank. So Jan's forces would have come in, but it just depends on whether this central aspect would have also been just beaten away before Jan actually got in as well. So potentially a piecemeal situation, but it could have been close. It could have been close. We've seen battles that look like they're going one way and then turn another. So
we did technically rule it an Abyssinian victory, right?
Yeah, as in they were able to secure the city.
Yeah.
They
which is the
held.
criteria
Yeah.
for the battle. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously,
Well,
we'll send details of that to the actual players with a bit more to it than that. But yeah, essentially the Abyssinians held town for the day.
yeah. I think both sides had good plans. I don't want to beat up on the commanders too much. This was a huge battle. It was very chaotic. The center almost collapsed. And it was only, I think, through weight of numbers that Abyssinia was able to hold the center. And nobody gets it all right. So again, please don't nobody think that I'm, trying to beat up on you. You should see how I play. I guarantee you, it's worse. But just from an objective umpire perspective, there were things that needed to happen that didn't happen. And by the way, that's quite normal in every game. And I'm just pointing out this is what happened or did not happen in this particular game. And now we have a player generated result with the umpires putting their stamp on it. And so now it remains to be seen. And I'm not going to give that away. What happens in the aftermath, other players who are in other nations will get the news when the news travels to you. So that's how that battle went. Let's
I
take.
will say that some reports are still yet to come out.
Mhm.
I know earlier on today, some people were saying that they hadn't received their after action report of the battle, and that is coming. But as mentioned earlier in the video, there is a number of servers, and it does take some time to cross reference events and people going certain places and what's happening. So, but
Yeah.
that is on its way.
And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail momentarily. But before we completely leave the topic of the battle here, I do want to address a couple more comments. Achilles says, that is correct. The infantry in the north should have changed their axis of movement once the enemy cavalry showed up. He said, I was able to tie up that cav, which had 12 blocks to my 8, but, ellipsis. The infantry should have changed their movement to go south immediately so as not to be delayed there. They kind of played into the enemy's hands there. And that's right. And the Corps commander did not issue a change of mission either. Sean said, and Sean was commanding the Abyssinian forces, he said, yeah, I definitely struggled with control of the battle. As for my control of the reserves, I can see the criticism. Hey, that's a win for you, man, because anytime you're like, hey, I learned something from that, I see that, big high five to you, Sean. That's great. That's a good win for you. I think that the line would have held and we would have rolled up the left than tried to break the right. Yeah, and we as umpires saw that as well, Sean, and we've had some discussions about it, but at this point that's water under the bridge. Achilles says ultimately the result of the battle is based on what the two sides do after it, and I do think that's a big deal as well. Good point, Achilles. Now, Dave just talked about going through all of these servers and the time that it takes to get through them. And Dave's 100% right. You look at all these servers, like we got all these notifications going on. I want players to know that we've sort of settled down on the schedule. Each week is 1 month in game. Monday will be the first week, Tuesday will be the second week, Wednesday the third, Thursday the fourth, and then Friday is Fudge Day, where we just kind of try to catch up and tie up loose ends. But then Saturday and Sunday are umpire time. Now, you as players can interact and do things on those days, but please understand that those are the days that the umpires will be processing the turns. So if you don't get a report until later on Sunday or even Monday morning at the latest, depending on your time zone difference, that's within the time frame. You have to give us time because we have to go through a lot. We also have personal lives, just like you do. Sometimes we don't have a Saturday. We lose a Saturday or a Sunday to a family event or work or whatever. And that happens too. But we're going to try to keep to this really good cadence that we've established. We are going to slow down some of the things. I know that when we went into the Karvike situation, um, that moved a little fast. We had a meeting on that as umpires, and again we've kind of worked out now that again Monday is 1 week, Tuesday is another week, and so on. So that way we slow some of that down, and people don't feel completely blindsided by events that are happening in their own country. At the same time, that blindsided feeling is actually intentional, though. So it wasn't altogether unintentional. We did want things to move and kind of feel out of control for the Kharkov-Blaureich War, and there was a reason for that. And that has not been sussed out by the players, and that's okay. There are certain things that you as players have to work out on your own and figure out. Um, but we, as the umpires, are less apologetic than you may want us to be, but there are reasons for that. Let's take a look real quick at the economic system. I have a blank sheet here. This is the Dorado. Dorado is not being played by a player, but if you interact with them for any reason, you should assume they're player controlled because the umpires are playing them. But this here is the sheet, and it shows everything here. This is a beautiful system that was set up by one of the players. APO is the name. He is his Arcanian player, and he is a wizard with this sort of stuff, and he set up this whole economic system. And the really cool thing is I can go through this, and in about 30 minutes time, I can process the economic turn for everybody on the continent. There's a little thing I do. I just go through, I check numbers, I tweak things, I make sure everything is kind of okay. Then I process it, and there's this whole algorithm or formula, whatever that it goes through. Actually, it's technically called a macro. I run the macro, and then after that, it gives you me the next month. Then I go through and I tweak anything for the next month. And then, of course, on Monday, this budget is yours to decide what you want to do for the month following. And let's see here. As players, you need to pay attention to this. Don't touch the gray area. Don't type anything in the gray area. It will break the spreadsheet. The white areas are where you get to enter new values. You get to change things. Now, things like public expenses, you can change that, but if you do, there's a consequence one way or the other. It's like your taxes. So you can increase taxes or you can cut taxes, but if you're not putting money into public expenses, then there will be a consequence. Army maintenance, recruitment, naval, and all of this maintenance stuff, you have to pay those. And if you're not paying those, I'm going to catch you, and there'll be a consequence if you're not paying them. I am going to do audits during the week, but it does take time to do an audit of each nation's army and navy and so on. But it's on you guys to maintain this, so please do. But again, don't do anything in the gray area. And if you have a question, please ask, okay? So there's that. That's kind of what I got. Dave, do you have anything more for our audience?
Um, uh, yeah, as a last thought, I mean, I regularly check the channels, and I just want to, maybe just say, to the team leaders leading the country, encourage your guys to engage and, and players, if you've got any questions with regard to any reports, or if I am not being descriptive enough, you're free to ask questions and stuff. I will engage, if you ping me, and we can have conversation and stuff like that. And then the world builds around that. So I mean, the more you engage, the more I can build for you in that regards.
Yeah, we really do want to encourage you players to create the politics in the situation. The more what I call organic problems that you guys create for one another, the less we as umpires have to kind of come up with something to engage you. So if you're not doing a whole lot, pay attention, because we're going to submit, messages or news items to you. And if you ignore those, if there's a problem in that news message or report, it's going to grow, and it's going to eventually, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get your attention. And when we don't get your attention, we rattle the cage a little harder. And if we still don't get your attention, we start imposing consequences because you're ignoring a growing problem. But we create those problems in part so that you have something to do, so you're not just sitting there bored for 2 or 3 turns. but also because there's stuff going on in the world and we want to stimulate and create a dynamic world. But ideally, everything that happens is generated by you, the players, and we are simply facilitating those events. So that's where we want people to go. We want to encourage people to actually do things, do verbs, do actions, to engage with other nations, support them, undermine them, whatever. Pay attention to what's happening in your own country. Even within your own country, there's a certain amount of intrigue that we're absolutely going to allow. And believe you me, there is intrigue afoot in several countries. Having said that, Peter, is there anything that you want to add as a final thought or anything you want to touch on before we wrap up?
Yeah, all I'd say is that I know from time to time the players, the participants feel like they're being unduly dealt with. Maybe the umpire is stacking things against them more than they should. All I'd say is sometimes it's opposing nations that are stacking things against you, and we're just
Yep.
playing those things out. And I mean, it is 1806, and yeah, it was never going to be a walk in the park. But, so yeah, we're trying to make something that is engaging, but yeah, also can push you a little bit as well. Maybe not in the happiest of directions, but it's all part of the experience.
Absolutely. And yeah, we do want people to know that we're not persecuting anyone in particular, that instead everyone is being hit with problems and complications. And if you think that you're, being singled out for persecution, I assure you, you are not. You are actually just getting the standard treatment. Everybody, we're creating problems and chaos for everybody, all the players. We're not picking on anyone in particular. But hopefully you're having fun with it. So there you go. All right, here's our meme of the week. We don't have a meme of the week feature, but this is our meme of the week anyway. I don't know who created it. Me. I created it. Of course I know who created it. That's why it's the winner. I'm joking. But anyway, I want to thank you all. In particular, I want to thank Peter and Dave. You guys are doing a lot of really, really hard work to get this campaign up and running and to keep it moving, and it's deeply appreciated. We're dealing with, I don't know that we haven't done a census of the players. I don't know what our player count is, but 6 times 6 is 36. That's a big number when they're all doing multiple actions, and I think that's about the average. So we're dealing with, probably between 30, 40 players. Every now and then somebody wanders in and says, hey, can I play? I wouldn't be surprised to see us dealing with 50 players at some point in the near future. And again, Dave is handling most of the everyday vanilla traffic. He's also doing his own stuff. I'm running around creating chaos for everyone, and I'm doing my stuff, plus the economic stuff. And Peter's handling the military stuff, and his job is getting a lot harder by the turn. So please bear with us. Go ahead and take that survey. Again, that survey is in the general channel, and we do want you to take that survey. I'll click on it and show you the general channel real quick one more time, and then we're done for the day. So it's right here in the 1806 server general channel. Go ahead and click that and take the survey and give us your feedback. Well, that's all I have for today. If you folks want to support us, please go to our Patreon page and help us out, support us on Patreon. And we appreciate everything that you are doing for us and keeping us alive and functioning and working. Again, it's patreon.com Kriegsspiel. We also have our store, which is on Etsy. And again, you can get those links from us from our website. In fact, let's just go to .org and show you the website. And here's where you can get to everything. Podcast, shop, everything. All of our resources are here. You'll definitely want to check out our resources, maps, and we've got tons and tons and tons of map sources. So a lot of this stuff. So thank you all for tuning in to our podcast. That's all we've got for today. It was a long one. We went twice as long as normal, an hour, but I hope it was informative and helpful to all of you out there. I want to thank you all for being here with us, and I want to say we will see you on our next adventure.